are here. We're here. Welcome to the Coach's Huddle. This is your boy, the Coach, and we are back where the field meets family and another installment of the Faithful Review here with my man, always by my side, Tom Jensen. Tom, it's the holidays. How you doing?
Yeah, well, have a nice holiday season and Merry Christmas to you and everybody tomorrow. I love the spirit of the season, and I have to embrace that because I can't talk about my Niners.
Oh, my God. There ain't nothing under the tree that's for Niners fans right now, man. This is freaking bleak. This season has been a stinker. There's no way around it, Tom. I mean, but don't look now. We got 2 more games to go. But right now, I feel like we don't want to talk about, remember when you used to go to school and you get that call home, and it's like, you know what, Thomas, coach, little coach, I'm calling home. I'm calling home. And you know what? The worst thing ever is when you get that phone call, is when you got that teacher on the phone and they get through running down how you've basically been a hellion all day. And then they say, hey, well, do you want to speak to coach? Do you want to speak to little Tom? You want to speak to him? And your parents say, no, wait till he gets home. That's how the Detroit game feels right now. We are waiting to get home to that ass whooping that we know is coming. So it is what it is, man.
Yeah, it's a date with the firing squad.
Definitely. But what I wanted to do is just get into our topics real quick. I mean, we got a couple of them today, not too long, but what we want to do is just basically get into, the postseason, because that's what, I mean, the off season, rather, the off season, because that's what matters. Right now, the 49ers have a lot of housekeeping to do, coming off of basically one of the worst seasons that this regime has seen outside of Kyle's first year, his forced outset. We haven't been this bad in a long time. And I think there's a lot of reasons why. But one of the things that we have to look at is, styles make fights, and ain't no romance without finance. All right. And we got to be able to understand that throughout the offseason, not only have we signed some players that deserve to be here that have overperformed their contracts, but quite frankly, there were a lot of players on this team that leveraged their position on the team. They realized that they were out of guaranteed money. We were coming off of a losing season. The team didn't necessarily replenish the roster in ways that would make them feel as though that there would be natural competition in the offseason during camp. And they exercised their right as independent contractors. One thing that we will do is just go over it. The 49ers gave into the offseason contract holdouts from key players. We already know who those players are. Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey. But all are now injured or underperforming. With leverage shifting back to the team, should the 49ers demand pay cuts to reflect their diminished value and avoid further financial strain as they rebuild for 2025? Now, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation, Tom, is that I feel as though that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We already went over it. Players felt inclined to exercise their rights. They felt like the organization was in a vulnerable position. They knew that there was really nobody behind them. The depth had dwindled over the years. And they understood that coming off of yet another deep season loss, that it was time for them to prioritize their careers and their money. Good for them, right? Yeah. I'm player first. Get your money, right?
Get back.
Great. However, things are different, all right? And the season has changed. And with us losing games, having guys not finish seasons, and moving forward, this is one thing that I want to talk about with contracts. Contracts are not, we say this all the time, and I really want this to get permeated throughout the entire fan base. Contracts are not for what you have done. They are for what you are going to do. All right?
Exactly
what you have done has garnered you the opportunity to be able to have this contract negotiation. However, we're talking about what you're going to do in the future. And with what I've seen moving forward with $30 million a year for Brandon Ayuk, All right. Up teen to the amount of maybe 20 plus $1 million a year in the high teens for Christian McCaffrey. Forgive me, I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but high numbers for Christian McCaffrey. And also another tab for a Trent Williams who did not finish the season. Not to mention that you have a still highest paid fullback in the league in Kyle Juszczyk, and you also have Deebo Samuel coming up on multiple years still left on his deal to get paid. Do the Niners have it in them to have this conversation, to sit these guys down the way they sat down Eric Armstead, right? And sat him down and say, hey, you're underperforming. I know we're walking into a lot of money that you're due this year. I know that we've got to see exactly, we've got to be able to see exactly what the money says. But for what it's worth, let's just kind of break outside of the black and white and look at the tape. You're not the same player. All right.
No.
And you're officially not to hurt your feelings. This isn't emotional. This is business, but you ain't what we paying for. All right. Your performance does not make it okay for you to get paid like this. So we need you to take a haircut collectively across the board, because in order for you to be accentuated in the twilight of your career, Christian McCaffrey, in order for you to have better teammates to play around you so we don't have to run to your side every down, Trent Williams, in order for you to be able to run the best routes on the route tree and not get used to just take the top off the defense, Brandon Ayuk, all of you are now going to have to take pay cuts in order to bring more players in. I feel like this is karma in a sense, Tom, because one would say that the attitude around all of these guys getting paid was, we got to get paid before Brock gets paid, because there's no way that we're going to get our money that we really need. And if Brock gets the deal that they're basically saying that he is. And as fate would have it, all three of them underperformed in the first full year of the deals that they made. So right now, why isn't it, I guess the question for me is, why isn't it okay for the Niners to pull the rug out from under these players the same way they did the Niners a couple of months ago?
Well, the Niners can make that argument. The question is whether the players and their agents are going to go for that.
Where are they going to go?
Well, we know what Armstead did, and so he just said, "No, just cut me."
Right.
And in some ways, the Niners would welcome that from some people, but the people we're talking about now, we're saying Deebo, Bosa, Ayuk. These are important players. They're not people like Armstead who have fallen off completely. Now, Deebo is close to falling off completely. I wouldn't mind just cutting him, but I'm not sure that Kyle would be. But somebody like Bosa, you can't do that. So they have to choose their spots on who they can do that with, and they have to determine, can we just restructure these guys? They would be fine with that, or do we need to actually ask for pay cuts? With Juice, the key with him is he already has it structured in his deal to have an out in this offseason. So he can get paid $4.5 million, and it costs 2.3 dead cap, and he's done. He's gone. I think that's what they'll do with him. You can't ask him to take another pay cut. We saw the drama from last year. Just cut him loose. Let him go. I think that's what they have to do with him. With Deebo, given Kyle's relationship with him, I don't think Kyle has it in him to cut Deebo outright. And trading him, good luck, given how much he makes and what his production is like, and who he is as a teammate, and that he's proved that he's the ultimate diva that only cares about himself. It's very hard to move a guy like that.
I have a sneaky topic, sidebar.
Go.
And give me 10 seconds, literally.
Okay.
Is it still too late to pump and dump Deebo? Go.
Yeah. Yes, in my opinion, because what he did was basically respond to public criticism. People were shoveling dirt on his career, and he reacted out of ego to play well. If I'm a team, I don't want that motivation, my players. I want you to play hard when we need you. They needed him last week. He didn't show up at all. And now this week, his ego gets bruised, and now he shows up. Forget you. I think that's how most teams will see it. Whether it's all, we'll find out.
Well, Brandon Ayuk, do you think he's going to be able to climb back into being worth? I mean, the question was already there if he is worth the 30, right?
He's not.
Okay, now we know he's not, right? When did they have that conversation with Brandon Ayuk? How do these things, like, this is the reason why I raised this topic. I raised this topic because I think that it's going to be incredibly frustrating to get gaslit next year about why we don't have certain players, or why we don't have depth, or why the defensive line doesn't have another pass rusher, or why we don't have interior depth to stop the run, or why we're still going to battle with Jake Brindle, or why we went up and picked some bum up and put him at left guard because Aaron Banks can't go. Like, there's going to be so many excuses. And what's going to really frustrate the hell out of us is we're all going to be staring at these large contracts that are underperforming. And really, I think that this is, in a sense, a house of cards. They already restructured Debo. That's why I believe it was Jonathan Pearman's comment up. They already restructured Debo. So Debo's got about a 40 million plus cap hit. I mean, dead cap hit if they cut him, or if they leave him. If they rip the Band-Aid off with Debo, why not just eat? I mean, for lack of a better term, why not eat shit for a year? Just go ahead and just really have a bad year. Just get rid of, cut who you need to. Take it all in 1 year. We know we already have Eric Armstead's post June 1 cut coming.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know. What do you say?
I say that you can claim that sounds good, that's what they should do. But Kyle Shanahan's making those decisions as the de facto GM. Is he going to want Machiavelli's economy of violence, all the pain, all at once, when his job is being evaluated? Kyle, the GM, will protect Kyle, the coach. He won't go for that. He won't say, cut everything, because he doesn't want to face the scrutiny of possibly being forced to move from Las Gatas. Mm-hmm. Kyle is going to protect what he values most, Kyle. And therefore, you can say this, you would be absolutely justified in calling for it, you would be correct in football terms, but Kyle makes that decision, and Kyle is going to protect Kyle.
Trips, you got to win one for it to be the last dance. We ain't even got on a dance floor. You got to win one first for it to be the last one. I see what you're saying. I feel as though that they've got to make some drastic moves in order to get out of this. There's no soft approach to what they've done with the cap. These guys are older, and they're going to make a lot of guaranteed money next year. And there's no way that we can win with these guys, even at their current state. I mean, we saw Trent. Trent wasn't back at all this entire season.
No.
I watched tons of film on Trent before he got hurt. He was doing his level best, but he was falling apart at the seams. He couldn't handle the power on. He wasn't necessarily as physical as he was. He was walling off a lot of defenders. He was a big waist bender, didn't do a lot of moving from his knees. And he did his best to play as hard as he could. Definitely all heart. Don't want to take anything away from him. But that man ain't worth $30+ million next year.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
He's damaged goods at this point. It's just there's too many miles on him.
Too much tread on the tires. And I feel the same way about Debo. I honestly, in some instances, the worst thing he could have did was have the game he did Sunday. It's like
all that does is it proves Debo's mindset and motivation, which is all about himself.
Yeah,
and that's not going to endear you to anyone.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to the next topic. Can we finally assess Brock Purdy? All right. Let's get into it because, I stay away from this topic, but let's go. So really, Brock Purdy's career started as an underdog story, but now 3 years in, we've seen both his highs and lows. With his injuries and the team's struggles, which is important to note, is it time to fairly assess if Purdy can truly lead the Niners or if they need to explore more consistent quarterback options? Now, I know that we always talk about this is a nuanced topic because you can almost miss it if you blink. This isn't about if Brock is good enough, right? This isn't about if Brock is elite. This is about people who take and move the goalposts when Brock is assessed, period. There seems to be some type of gatekeeping around Brock where you don't know when to truly assess him as a starting quarterback. On one hand, he's overshooting every metric, and every metric that he's overshooting should be given more credence because of his draft stock, because of his height, because of his lack of physical ability with his arm throws, all right, with his throwing arm, right? His injury with his elbow. Then you start talking about what he does when he has phenomenal games and what happens the first time you talk about him when he has phenomenal games. Strength of schedule. Who were you playing? How many of the Avengers were on the field? And it seems as though that you can never have a full balanced conversation about Brock. I feel that's what's different about Brock versus most quarterbacks that we have conversations about, where nobody is moving the goalpost for a Lamar. If Lamar does bad when his team is hurt, Lamar has done bad. If Lamar does good, if Lamar does good while his team is good, that doesn't mean anything more on Lamar. Hey, Lamar, nobody says, well, everybody was healthy today, so what do you expect from Lamar, right? If Geno Smith shits the bed, nobody checks to see who was hurt on the starting lineup, or what was going on with Mike McDaniel, or he's got a new coach, or defense didn't really do their job. Everybody assesses Geno in a vacuum. And I feel as though that we assess quarterbacks in vacuums because of the consistency. Once you've seen enough of them, it's okay to see instances of them where it's like, all right, well, we've seen the best of Brock, we've seen the worst of Brock. Now let's see what he can give us now. My biggest thing is, when can we finally have a conversation about Brock where all of the outside attributes are finally just put to rest? And you can really look at the quarterback and say, this guy is good. This guy's bad. This guy deserves the money. This guy doesn't deserve the money. Just purely look at the guy. Don't compare him to other quarterbacks. Just give me what you see. What do you see out of this guy? Take the name off the back of his jersey and watch him play. That's it. No story, no narrative, no teammates, no DVOA, EPA, ABC, 1, 2, 3, EPMD, supercalifragilistic, expialidocious, whatever you want to put on it. All right. Yeah. But just tell me what you see from the kid. And at some point, it's going to be a little ridiculous for people to be assessing Brock about who's on the field and who's not on the field, and how the team feels, and if it was raining or if it wasn't. And in a sense, I'm just wondering, when are we ever going to be able to do that? Or are we ever going to be able to have this conversation?
And that's the question. In the social media construct, never. Because Purdy has a highly populated player zealot following. Mm-hmm. They are the Santa Claus of the NFL. They make a list of who's been naughty and nice. They see who's been saying bad stuff about their boy, who's been saying good stuff about their boy, who's making comparisons about their boy. Those people are the gatekeepers. Mm-hmm. They are the ones who will always march out whatever excuse is necessary to deflect off the fact that Purdy had a bad game. They will never allow an intellectually honest discussion of Purdy's strengths and weaknesses and who he really is. Mm-hmm. But now let's divorce ourselves from all that and say, the Niners still need to have this conversation. Who is Brock Purdy? What are we getting? And how do we move forward? So they have to have this discussion. Even if the zealots won't allow us to have it, they must. And so we'll see what they do. But yeah, we have to assess what Brock can and can't do. I think it's pretty fair to say, okay, we've got 3 years of data now. We can make that assessment.
Yeah. And that's my biggest thing, is that, making after a while, it's going to be pretty asinine to be breaking out your abacus just to talk about Brock. Like, it's going to look pretty dumb. It's like, all right, well, he's been in the league. It's like he's been in the league 5 years, 6 years. Like, how many more outside factors are you going to give this guy before you say yay or nay? I feel that that's the biggest issue that I see with Brock thus far. And you make the best point. It doesn't matter what we think, right? It really doesn't. What matters is that if the Niners have a true bead on what they know Brock is as a player, right? In my opinion, I believe that Brock is a bridge quarterback. I
He
do.
is.
I believe that he's good. I think that he has plus attributes as a starter in the NFL. However, there's a limit. You can't just leave Brock unabated on the field, right? To operate a full offense. That's not what we've seen out of him. I don't think that that's what Kyle has even felt encouraged to do with Brock, with how much he is always. I'm going to tell you this right now. You're lying to yourself if you don't agree with what I'm saying, what I'm about to say right now. The best thing that sold everybody on Brock, right? Even if you were a criticizer of Brock and you finally came over across the aisle, everybody has to admit that one thing that we all thought Brock signified was freedom of the offense. We finally got a quarterback that was going to be able to run the offense. It was no more because we all call Kyle a genius. We all love what Kyle does. That's cool. But the truth of the matter is that we all know that this is not normal for a head coach to be this involved with literally every play. And even if he's calling the plays, we still see his fingerprints on the offense. And after 3 years in, you could tell me, even your staunchest Brock supporter still won't admit that there are trust issues between Brock and Kyle Shanahan, where Kyle won't even give Brock the full offense. So essentially, he's still Jimmy.
Yeah. Well, but that's Kyle, though. That's not anything to do with Brock. It's Kyle being a control freak. It's Kyle not allowing Brock to just audible to any play. No. I am a genius. I have called 3 plays for you. You will call one of the 3. End of story. Yeah. And that's Kyle. Yeah. He's not going to change. Yeah. We've had this discussion before. There is a ton of baggage when you have Kyle Shanahan. This is one of those elements.
Yeah.
The center will call the protections.
Yeah.
And you won't have audibling because Kyle trusts himself, not you. And he could have Tom Brady in his prime. He could have Joe Montana in his prime. He could have Peyton Manning in his prime. And he would tell all those guys, you cannot audible. And, Peyton Manning would say, okay, the heck with you. I'm going to audible anyway. So would Brady. Montana, maybe. But regardless, Kyle will never give up control of anything. And so saying that, Brock's greatest strength is his mind, that it's his intelligence, it's the way that he can see the field, it's what he did at Iowa State. You can make all those arguments till you're blue in the face. Kyle isn't going to listen to it because at the end of the day, Kyle trusts Kyle. No one else.
Mm-hmm. Look, I'll tell you this. The thing that's emblematic of me saying that, that I believe that, Brock isn't truly being assessed is the fact that just, him wanting 55, just the reports of him wanting $55 million, man, it's like, that ain't it. You know what I mean? Like that's weird. He's not getting paid that money. Like, and if the Niners walk into that, dude, we're screwed for years, bro. That ain't an opinion. That's a fact, Jack. That cannot happen.
It will, though.
You really believe it's going to happen, bro? Well, let's move into the next topic, you freaking Debbie Downer. All right, let's get into it. Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
You managed to do this every freaking show, Tom.
I know. I'm sorry, Coach. I should be more positive, but I'm also a realist.
All right. Well, get real on this one because you better answer it. Brock Purdy faces an uncertain future after enduring one of his worst seasons. Yet, with his extension looming, when will negotiations start? How much will he command? And could the 49ers explore alternative options instead of a long-term commitment? Tom, if it's going to happen, how would it happen? How much would it be? And what are the Niners' options if they don't want to sign this kid? Let's get into it.
All right, let's go to that. First, I think the Yorks are going to be driving this process. They want Brock as their face of the franchise. So it's a business decision to them. It's marketing the team. And if that's their mindset, then it can only be Brock. There can be no alternative because he's the face. And so all those options that you can talk about that make a whole lot of sense on the football field, the Yorks don't care about that because they want their face of the franchise to market. And so if that's how they're approaching this, and Jed has hinted as much in the past year, 2 years, that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to go through the process like they did with McCaffrey. It's going to be a quick extension. It's going to be between 55 and 60 a year, a little bit less than 60 so the fans don't explode. And then Brock's going to get a lot of money up front. I think the deal would be structured similarly to what Trevor Lawrence got. So he got 5 years, 275, 200 guaranteed, 143 up front. From a cap perspective, it helps the team because you're paying so much money up front. But in terms of what Brock is getting, he's getting a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Look at this guy, Steve-O, man. Steve-O's an asshole. That is not the same topic. All right. Steve-O loves to just come in here and just throw shit on the floor and walk out. All right. Not even a good steward of the chat. Get it together, Steve-O. Look, so my biggest thing right now with his future is that I do believe that, like I said before, I believe he's a bridge.
He is.
Signing him to long-term money is just not in the cards. I don't understand. I think the biggest issue right now is just us not understanding how the Niners feel about Brock. I mean, we've heard reports that they want him to be, quote unquote, the guy, but there's nothing wrong with giving him a 2-year deal, a 3-year deal. I don't see. Go ahead.
They won't because they want to space out the money up front for cap reasons.
Yeah, so but
it's virtually guaranteed to be a 5-year deal as a result. What Sentinel was
saying? Hold on, so a
5-year
deal with no outs?
Oh, it'll have outs. It's just that it'll be as structured as a 5-year deal to allow them to deal with the cap benefits of having 5 years.
All right, so essentially
there will be outs, but yeah.
Right. Okay. So all right. So let's go 5 year. Before we deal with this dude in the chat, I want to get to this because we're really on it. So if we do get a 5-year deal, that doesn't necessarily mean 5 years. So where would you see the out?
The out would be in year 3.
Year 3. So basically, it would be a
3-year
deal, right?
But to deal with the cap, it would be a 5-year deal.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
All right. So 5 years. 5 years. So what would be the guaranteed up front? Do you think they would give him 100 up front?
More. Trevor Lawrence got 143 up front.
No, not 160 up front.
Well, 150. Yeah, I would think it would be somewhere between 120, 150. If the Lawrence thing is the blueprint, and that's just my guess, is that if that's what's being used, then yeah.
All right, man. So going into this, if they have that under tow, what do you think the split would be AAV annually?
Well, so probably a little bit under 300 because again, you don't want to go to 60 because it'll piss off the fans. And so how far do you back off of that? Somewhere like 5,280, 5,290, but not 5,300.
5,280. I just don't think he's worth.
He's not. Period. But if the Yorks are making this decision, it's business, not football. That's the essence of this entire organization right now. It's about the money. It's not about the field. And that's the problem when you got a GM that doesn't make decisions for the football, and you got an owner that doesn't make decisions for the football. Here you go. You get this mess.
So at 5,280, you're automatically saying like you expect Brock to get mid 50s.
Yeah.
55, 56 a year.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous. I agree. From a football perspective, none of this can be justified. But if the Yorks are approaching this the way they have said they are, and if they're going to make Purdy the face of the franchise, they're going to take care of him, especially the upfront money because he hasn't been paid yet. And so they're going to give him a whole bunch of money up front. And then they're going to want to spread it out over 5 years. So I think this is where it's headed. I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I just think that that's where this is headed because the Yorks are driving the process, not the football.
All right, but look, green glass full. At 56 per, So really, what Brock Purdy has shown us in 3 years, you feel completely okay with committing to 56 rather than striking into the unknown. What have we won because of Brock Purdy? What have we won? What have we won? I don't see it. At 50, this ain't about, not liking them. This is about money. At $56 million a year, we're fucked. There is no way around that. All right? Defensive line, done. And then you think about it, dude, even if he gets mid-50s, that means that the names that we do have, we're going to have to watch them get old in front of us. There is no more help coming unless we do it through the draft. 56 doesn't even make sense as a viable franchise. Good organizations don't even do this. No. What does it say right now? What does it say right now that the Vikings aren't pressing to pay Sam Darnold right now with the type of season that he's having?
Well, I think that ultimately they will take care of him because they got 13 wins. What they have right now is working. You keep
how? All right, bro. So I gotta figure out, how am I wrong?
You're not wrong on football. It's just if the Yorks are making the decision is only based on business. Because that's what they care about. It's about the money.
Shield says that it's basically it depends on how the deal is structured. Look, I understand that he's going to get his guaranteed money up front and they're going to have outs, all right? But my biggest thing is that when does the money kick for him to really start killing the cap, right? Because I don't think that Brock is worth...
You're 3.
Yeah, I don't think Brock's worth more than 45.
He's not.
You know what I'm saying? There is a world, and to be honest with you, there is a world where Brock Purdy gets paid, Nick Bosa gets traded. Yeah, there is a world. Possible. That's a real possibility.
I would trade Bosa right now for Myles Garrett.
I would trade Nick Bosa right now for Myles Garrett. That's a hell of a man. You know what? All right, you know what? We'll talk about the next topic. Let's talk about that for the next 1 minute and 30 seconds. Tell me why you would trade Nick Bosa for Myles Garrett.
Because Myles Garrett is a better player, a more complete player, a more motivated player, and he makes less.
Dude, I think that Myles Garrett also has a better injury history, has a better injury history than Nick Bosa. He's bigger, stronger, you know what I'm saying? More rugged against the run. Hey, look, man, I'll say this. You got to love Nick Bosa. He went through multiple injuries this year, but if the beginning of this show started off with us asking players to take pay cuts,
and here we are, yeah, it's brutal. But I would hope that Cleveland would be interested in having Bosa as an Ohio State guy. Mm-hmm. That could help them market him and soften the blow of losing Myles Garrett. If I'm the Niners, that's something I am pursuing aggressively. I don't think they will, but I think they should.
Definitely. They're not going to move off of him, though. They do everything a day late and $1 short. All right, Green Glassful says, ain't you, coach, sorry, spelling, but Brock is going to be on the team next year. The QB draft coming up also sucks. Yeah, so look, I'm not saying that Brock Purdy doesn't need to be on this team. Not even close. We need to keep our asset. He's drafted. He's our guy, right? But what I'm also saying is that just because he's ours, we don't got to try to convince everybody else that he's something that he's not. He's ours. I get it. We drafted him. He's a great quarterback that came in and was a polarizing figure exactly when we needed him. And I get all of that. But for what we've seen since Baltimore, forget the season, but since Baltimore,
9-10,
it's been tough sledding, baby. You know, and, I'm not going to piss on your face and tell you it's raining, dog. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to just shake off. Like, so, no, I'm just playing. All right, man, let's get into our next topic, man. I got to get out of it before they kick me off the YouTubes, man. All right, so let's get into our next topic. Right now, we're we got to get into Shanahan's contract decisions. And let's see if they should be criticized. With massive contracts for Ayuk, Williams, and McCaffrey, limiting cap space, some are questioning Kyle Shanahan's roster building decisions. Should the organization limit his authority over contract negotiations to ensure better financial flexibility for future seasons? Now, the reason why this topic is coming up now is we've heard about all of the stories, right? Kyle Shanahan comes in to save the day versus Trent Williams. Comes in the 11th hour, calls Trent, and the deal gets done, right? Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk is about to get traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then Kyle valiantly runs up steps, goes through 10-5 steel doors, comes in at the speed of a flashing bullet, and saves the day to save Brandon Ayuk for the San Francisco 49ers. Christian McCaffrey was lost in the Hamptons with 2 bad Achilles, ready to be wed, but had no money to finish off his wedding and called Kyle and said, listen, listen,
I love it.
If you don't foot the bill for this goddamn honeymoon, I'm out of here. And Kyle said, what do you need? Cash your card. I got you. And he signed them. All right?
Yeah.
All of these guys have been signed by Kyle Shanahan. There's so many Aesop's fables that are surrounded by all of these stories. Don't you love how the Niners romanticize every problem? Like, they're a horrible rom-com. It's like, let's just put on some, I feel like every time they talk about negotiation stories that were in the 11th hour and they finally came up, I just think of Dawson's Creek in the background. Do 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 do. I don't want to wait, but I love to be over. Do, 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 do. So it was Kyle. He was downstairs. Do, 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 do. It's like, my God.
Just have that theme song playing all the off season.
Dog. It's so funny, man. So look, here we go, man.
Oh, man.
Is it time to kind of take the Amex card away from Kyle? Is it time to take daddy's wallet away from Kyle?
It's time to take everything but offensive coordinator and head coach away from
Ooh.
Kyle.
You
said
tell.
No personnel control for you anymore, Sparky. Look at the 2022 and 2023 drafts.
Mm-hmm.
This draft, you picked 2 wide receivers, neither of whom play. Great strategy. Why'd you pick them? Oh, I don't know. What are you doing? For 3 years, I've been saying you must file Kyle Shanahan or you will not win a ring.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. No rings. They need an outside GM desperately. They need somebody that, what does Kyle do worst? Evaluate quarterbacks. What's he doing now? Evaluating Brock Purdy. What's the most important decision for a franchise? What they're going through right now with Purdy. Mm-hmm. And so you've got your de facto GM who can't assess quarterbacks, and you're relying on his football mind. And what's going to happen? It's just out of inertia, all this stuff's going to happen. Kyle's going to stay, Brock's going to get paid, and all these things are just business as usual, status quo, rubber stamp. Nobody is thinking about the football in this entire organization. That's the problem. They need a new GM desperately for this draft to deal with Brock, to deal with all these contract issues, somebody that knows what they're doing in team building, that isn't going to take 2 wide receivers in a draft and not play them. That's never going to happen with a real GM. Kyle has to be fired as GM. Until that happens, this team isn't serious and it's going nowhere.
Way to cook, Tom. I'll tell you this. I agree. Not only do I agree, I got something for you. Not only does Kyle Shanahan need to give up GM powers with being able to chime in or, have final say and word on guys getting their money, Kyle Shanahan needs an outside GM. He needs somebody outside of John. And I'm sorry, Tom, and I hate to step on your point, but no, Kyle needs an OC. He needs an
Oh,
OC.
ideally, yes. Whether
He
he
needs
would,
an OC.
I'm just worried that if you take away the GM and the OC, will Kyle accept that or will he demand out?
I think if you take away the GM and the OC, he'll be freaked out because then he'll have to be left with what his actual job is, and he's not good at it, which is being a head coach.
Bingo.
Which is being a head coach.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think that's the
absolutely.
issue.
Yeah.
Right? The issue is that I feel like Kyle picks up a lot of jobs to evade from the fact that he doesn't know how to do his job. I really do. I think that it's important for Kyle to be the OC because he's very good at that. He's leaned on his father. He has an entire scheme that he can wrap his arm around. I think that it's really good for Kyle to stick with being a GM because at the end of the day, the whole job of being a GM isn't on his shoulders. Kyle doesn't have to make the calls, to get the trades, to build the relationships, to be the face. He doesn't have to do any of that. All he has to do is sit back, and not all he has to do, but what he does is he goes and he assesses the things that are brought to him so he can make the ultimate decision. But the actual legwork, he doesn't have anything to do with that stuff. I think that really, I don't know if Kyle Shanahan is a good head coach because he hasn't done anything but be a head coach. Like, I don't know how you can assess him as being a good head coach where, the issues that seem to plague us are head coach responsibilities, game management, contract negotiations, like knowing when to let go of players, knowing when to be self-aware about game planning for certain players and when guys should not be usage, right? Which we're going to get into, right? I feel like all of the things that we are hearkening on, they may seem like petty things that are on the margins, but really it's the main edicts of what a head coach is supposed to do. It's like the day-to-day of being a head coach.
It's the job description.
Yeah. It literally is. So
he doesn't. And so part of the problem in all of this, there's no one in the organization who tells Kyle no. He's accustomed to having free reign to do everything he wants. You need somebody above him. That's part of my thinking in getting an outside GM. You need someone to tell Kyle no. You need someone to rein him in. And that's something we need to talk about in the next topic.
Right. Well, look, here goes the deal. The contract decisions, I'll be very interested to see how Parag, Marate, and the rest of the organization move forward with signing guys. I think the biggest contract that we're going to see moving forward is Brock's. We'll see how this contract negotiation goes, and really pay attention for anything different that we haven't seen in years past. Maybe if they get it done earlier, that'd be something that'd be different than what the Niners have done in the past. Possibly if they backload the money, that would be very interesting because the Niners love front loading money to get it out of the way quick, so they can go ahead and get and calibrate their cap to their best suited needs. My biggest thing right now with the contract decisions is they don't seem like business. They seem personal, right? Like Brandon Ayuk's contract negotiation didn't seem like business. It felt personal, right?
Yeah.
Trent Williams' contract negotiation didn't seem like business. It felt like it was personal, where Trent had to call Kyle to get the deal done, right? Debo Samuel, his contract negotiation, asking for a trade, publicly going out into social media, was very personal. I feel as though that there's a rude awakening between the players' relationship with Kyle and how the organization feels about them when it comes time for them to get paid. And it's a very big, realization, like an awakening. And a lot of the players don't like it, as if maybe this is the first time that they've had someone inside of the organization truly tell them where you stand within our lexicon of productivity versus money. And I think that in order to get over that, Kyle's going to have to get out of that process completely. There needs to be checks and balances with that.
Agreed. Part of the problem with all this is Kyle has blurred the lines by having personal relationships with the players.
Yeah.
That's a line that Walsh refused to cross. And that's what most coaches decide to do. I can still be collegial with you. I can still be your guy, but I'm not actually your friend.
Yeah.
And Kyle blurred that line, and I think that's why we're seeing the players resent when the organization comes in and tells them no, because Kyle doesn't tell them
Mm, I like that. Moving into our last and final topic. This one frustrates me, and we're going to get into it. So, after the loss yesterday, Fred Warner was visibly upset, more upset than we've ever seen him really after a game. Dare I say he looked human instead of like that coach speak that he comes out with. But Fred Warner and Nick Bosa expressed concerns over Dre Greenlaw's recurring injuries, including a calf issue following Achilles problems. Does Kyle Shanahan fail to recognize when players need more rest or protection, leading to worsening injury situations for key contributors? Now, for context, I just want to go over a couple of things because we talked about this. Earlier with the usage of Christian McCaffrey a couple of weeks ago. I put out a tweet and I basically accused Kyle of mismanaging Christian, and it got a lot of traction, and there was a lot of backlash. But basically, I feel as though that the conversation was kind of put into a vacuum of literally when Christian got hurt versus the workload and how there was nothing wrong with him before. And I stood my ground. I did not change. As a matter of fact, we came on this show and I explained with context exactly what I meant about workload, where workload isn't just about frequency, literal amount of times that you're getting carries or being utilized, but it's understanding the player, knowing the best plays, taking them on and off the field, warming them up and taking them off. And I've seen this from Kyle. I mentioned this about Kyle because I've seen it from him for years. And I'm not just talking about Niner years. We can go back to Washington. All right. We can go back to guys that have been mismanaged and ignored. And ultimately, we have seen players who needed to be saved from themselves and kept off the field ultimately go down in a blaze of glory that could have been avoided. So what I want to do right now is just kind of go over some things about the last time that I saw it coming, because every time I see it, I call it out. So let's do it. I called it out this time. So we got a tweet right now, and I put this out on the 19th of December, and this is after the Thursday night football game. And I end quote, after what we saw from Dre Greenlaw against the Rams on Thursday night football, it's clear he should be the 49ers' top priority for re-signing this offseason. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind sitting him for the rest of the season. He's already shown enough to prove his value, in my opinion. End quote. So, look, I talked about it, and at the time, nobody said boo. Like, it just wasn't a big deal. And here we are, Dre Greenlaw being the first game back. He had to tap his helmet to get somebody to come and get him off the field. The first game back. All right. Last year, when he was going through the playoffs, he was not healthy. He was running into ball carriers and having to get picked up off the ground by Fred Warner, all right, and other teammates. He wasn't even strong enough to get off the ground after tackles. And then we're going to sit here and watch him run on the field, pop his Achilles. He shouldn't have been playing throughout the playoffs. And here he is again, chomping at the bit, wanting to get back, because that's the only way he knows how to play. Full tilt, all right? You can't tell guys that have his background to play easy. You can't tell a Dre Greenlaw to take it easy, take a load off. It's not going to happen, right?
It's not in him. That's not who he is.
Yeah, and he gets hurt. Christian McCaffrey hurt all off season, didn't even have a camp, comes back and immediately starts getting 20 plus carries from scrimmage. 3 weeks in a row, boom, we get him in a blizzard, done. Come on, man. We can go all day.
Yeah, well,
Jordan Mason.
Elijah Mitchell.
Come on. Jordan Mason shut down for 3 weeks. 3 carries in 3 weeks. First carries back, he gets him in a snow blizzard. Done. For the season, gone. All right? Running the engine cold. Elijah Mitchell. The best we ever seen out of that kid was his rookie year.
Right.
Barely could make it through the year. Ran that kid into the ground. There was nothing left. All right? He still hasn't been the same. 2012, Alfred Morris, rookie, ran into the ground, 1,600 yards. All right? RG3, that was his daddy that time. Oh, you got a rookie. Well, it's not up to me to tell a guy when he can go and when he can't go. If a guy tells me he can go, he can get on the field.
That's self-serving.
Seattle, done.
Yeah.
Come on, we could go on. Raheem Mostert. I'm done. I felt ostracized by the team when I told Kyle that I didn't feel healthy going. I told him that my knee wasn't back yet. I didn't feel ready to go. And I was ostracized because of that. Done. Never seen from again. Guys, we could do that. Trey Lance. My God. We could just keep going. Trey Lance.
Yeah, it never stops. There's so many examples. And so you go through all this and you say, okay, Kyle is the common denominator in all of it. Why? What's Kyle's mindset? Play over the game. Battle over the war. Everything with Kyle is about the now. I have to win the play. I have to win the battle. Everything with him is about what's right in front of him. There's no long-term planning. There's no management. There's no management of the player. There's no management of that player's energy. There's no management of the room. You've got one of the best running back rooms in football if you bring everybody back, but Kyle won't use them in a rotation, and he won't invest in the offensive line, so you're not going to use that asset because that's not what Kyle does. It's, again, it's part of the Kyle baggage. And that baggage has to be brought out into the open. Everybody has to look at it and say, here's the cost of keeping Kyle Shanahan. CMC, done. Dre Greenlaw, done.
Done.
Elijah Mitchell, career over.
Done.
All of these guys, everything in Washington, same thing. Why? Because Kyle is selfish and Kyle is only thinking about Kyle and the now. He's not planning for anything beyond this play, this game. That's who he is. He's not going to change. He's going to keep doing this. He's going to keep running guys straight into the glue factory. Why? Because with him, everything is about the now. When has Kyle managed any player that's coming off injury intelligently and correctly? He hasn't. Any of the weapons he's had, straight into the glue factory. Come on.
Yeah. I'm just I'm player first, you know. I want the guys, you know, they got a once in a lifetime opportunity and they already play hurt, you know. You know, shocker. They already play hurt. But for me, it's not about a guy being good or not, because I see a little bit of back and forth about Trey Lance in here. It's not about whether Trey is a bust or not. All right. Trey ain't good. All right. If you want to look, if you're there, you got it. You're happy. You got me. Okay. Bang, bang. You got me, Sheriff. Trey Lance isn't good. Okay. That's not the question. The question is, was Trey Lance protected? Was Trey Lance intelligently used? Was Trey Lance nurtured? Was Trey Lance developed? That's the question. And if you can't ask those questions about Trey, then you'll never ask them about Brock. You'll never ask them about CMC. CMC already came in here with the injury history that he had. Over 350 touches from scrimmage last year, and you know we overused Christian last year.
Of course.
So you mean to tell me that nobody saw this year coming based off of last year has nothing to do with where Christian's body is this year. Nothing. So that's what we're going to sit here and we're going to tell that lie. You know, Tom, last year, I feel like Kyle got shot a lot of bail because it was the healthiest that we had ever been. Last year was almost a weird year as far as health is concerned. Almost nobody was out for an extended period of time.
It was a complete anomaly.
Complete anomaly.
They haven't done it before or since. In Shanahan's time with the Niners from 2018 or 2017, they've been among the top 10 in NFL injuries per year every year until 2023.
Yeah.
Every one of them, they were top 10 in most injuries.
Yeah.
That's not a coincidence.
Yeah, definitely. And, moving forward, I think that you should be able to pay attention to this because the guys are getting older. So, if there was ever a time for Kyle to start understanding, like, all right, man, you got yourself a quarter horse, but you do know he's 20. You can't run him. You can't run him in the heat all day. He's going to overheat. I just think that he needs to start realizing how to intelligently use these guys. I saw this comment, and I swear I wish I knew who said this because I'd give them tons of credit because I've been using the hell out of this ever since I saw it. But I saw this comment on Twitter, and it's just so funny, but it's true. And I didn't even think the person who wrote it was trying to be serious. But he said Kyle calls games like he's playing Madden with no fatigue and no injuries. He will literally call any play based off of any situation. He does not worry about who's tired. He doesn't worry about what's been happening. He will just keep calling plays aimlessly because in his AI brain, he just thinks that if the equation is right, then it should work right. And for the life of me, when is he going to get some self-awareness? Right?
He's not.
And
He's
also,
not. That's the point.
Also, one more. When is he going to coach through his deficiencies instead of coaching around him? Instead of around them? And this is what I mean by that. If you got an offensive line that is bad at running the ball, okay, that's not an excuse for you not running the ball. All right? That's your burden to find out how to still get runs on the ground. So for me, it's not an excuse that we have a bad offensive line while you go 5 wide on second down on the 3-yard line. Like,
crazy.
I do not understand why in his mind it's much better for me to find a better way how to make a play, even though it's the complete antithesis to the situation. Where even if you go 5 wide and you run a play, let's say by his mind, he can go 5 wide against a goal line defense and truthfully think, hey man, if we could just get the ball out to one of these receivers, it's a wide open touchdown. But Kyle, you got 8 to block. You got 5 in to block 8. He's not going to get the ball out, and he's under. It's just I don't see the logic behind some of the plays that he runs to evade the deficiencies that are on the offense. I don't get it.
Because he doesn't deal with the reality. He says from an X and O point of view, this receiver will be open if we can just get him the ball. But it ignores, like you said, 8 pass rushers, 5 blockers. This isn't going to work. I mean, that was exposed in the Super Bowl. You had all these guys where if the pass is made, you win the game. Pass wasn't made. Why? Because you didn't have enough blockers. Kansas City had 9 unblocked pass rushers on blitzes in the Super Bowl.
Also,
Kyle Shanahan.
Also, to be honest with you, right here, I'm going to close the show out with this because this is the type of football that I love. I'm going to tell you this right now. I really wish Kyle Shanahan would start calling plays. I really wish Kyle Shanahan would start calling plays. Here it is. Niners are hurt. Right here. He coaches based on hoping the defense makes a mistake. That is not the way I learned how to play offensive football. That is not it. We run plays because we want to run them, because you can't stop them. All right? So this right here is why we don't have an identity on offense. Yeah. Because everything is about evading. Everything is about catching you in the wrong position. But when it's hat on a hat, man on man, body on body, we don't have it. And I think that's our biggest issue. Kyle can't simply just call plays.
Well, Kyle takes the game to X and O. He takes the game to Madden. Kyle doesn't see the game in terms of people. He doesn't understand mismatches. Why have you lost both Super Bowls to Kansas City? Because Chris Jones dominated your right tackle both games. Mm-hmm. What does Kyle do in his offensive line? He doesn't value spending any free agent money on the offensive line to the right of Trent. What does he then do in the draft? He won't spend a first rounder on an offensive lineman. He hasn't since McGlinchey. He won't spend he won't spend 2 draft picks on an offensive lineman in a draft either. He won't double up. So if you have this mindset, you're going to have a deficiency. I mean, if you want to run, if you want to say, look, all we need to do is get the people. He could have one draft where he takes the Walsh draft from 81 and applies it instead of the secondary. He applies it to the offensive line. I'm going to draft 3 offensive linemen in the first 4 picks, and we're going to be able to have a dominant offensive line that runs the ball and controls the game. That would benefit Kyle tremendously, but he won't do it because he doesn't believe in it. He was told by the father of the wide zone, you showed this to me, you do not draft an offensive tackle with long arms in the first round because the wide doesn't need it. Yeah. You just need dogs. And Kyle embraced that because it saved him cap room and draft picks. And that's why he embraces it. But it's also why he loses. That's why you lost the first Super Bowl. 1 for 9 for Garoppolo with 1 pick because your offensive line couldn't protect him. That's why you lost. 9 unblocked pass rushers in Super Bowl II against Kansas City. That's why you lost. Both of them are directly related to you refusing to invest in your offensive line. And as long as Kyle is the GM, that will continue.
Tom, I'm not even going to put any more funk on it. You killed it, dog. We're going to drop it right here. What do you got going on tomorrow, man? It's Christmas, man. Christmas time is here. What do you got?
Well, and you're going to be there with family, which would be great.
Yeah.
I'm here in Seattle on my own. I got nobody. I can't go down to the Bay Area. My sister is going up to Lake Tahoe. My brother's doing his own thing, my dad. So I'm spending Christmas alone. Sad but true, but that's usually the story for me.
Time, as long as you got me, you ain't spending shit alone, man. You know I'm going to give you a call tomorrow. I'm going to talk to you, bruh. You know what I'm saying?
Always.
Got to come in here. Hey, man, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, man. Do what you want to do. Go out there, buy all of the frivolous gifts, even the important ones. Hug your loved ones, right? Think about how grateful you are for all of the privileges that you have, and just reflect. I feel like this is a season that slowed us all down to think about the little things, because God forbid if we think about the Niners. Well, that's the coach, and it's been Tom. It's been real, and as you know, happy holidays, but you always stay low and keep your feet moving. Happy holidays, guys. Get at me. Talk to you guys. Hey, the coaches meeting will be on Thursday. I don't think we're going to go on Wednesday, but we'll go from there. Hey, talk to you guys. Happy holidays. Have a good one, guys. Talk to you.